Convention 190 was the last convention to be adopted by the International Labour Conference, and the first, together with Recommendation 206, to state clearly and loudly that there is no place for violence and harassment in the world of work. It also states what is to be done and by whom to prevent and address it based on a shared understanding of what violence and harassment is. It also recounts that while responsibilities and mandates are distinct, states, employers and workers, and their representative organizations all have a role to play and need to act in sync for achieving utmost effectiveness. Convention 190 is also a gender-responsive standard. It recognizes that violence and harassment affects women and girls disproportionately. It singles out gender-based violence and harassment as one important form of violence and harassment. It acts on both the symptoms and causes of gender-based violence and harassment. It recounts that domestic violence has an impact on the workplace and that measures need to be taken to mitigate such impact. The world of work covers also places where women often work, in private households as domestic workers or in sectors and occupations, whether in the formal or informal economy, in which interface with third parties such as clients, students, patients, and the like is the norm. The new standards call for an inclusive, integrated, and gender-responsive approach to eliminating violence and harassment. At the time in which Convention 190 and Recommendation 206 were negotiated in June 2019, we could not anticipate the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic and could not anticipate how relevant the new standards would be in the response to and recovery from the pandemic. Images of retail staff being physically or verbally assaulted by clients, exasperated by empty shelves, or nurses being thrown chlorine bleach out of fear of contracting the virus have become commonplace. Cases of online sexual harassment had seen a 5-fold upsurge in some countries. Teleworking has allowed businesses to keep afloat and people to make a living while shielding them from the virus. But for many women, it has also meant a greater risk of domestic violence and mental health problems because of the heavy additional care work due to lockdown measures and unchanged expectations regarding their professional performance. Has Convention 190 made any difference to the daily life of women and men thus far? It's still early times to draw any conclusions. 10 countries have ratified the convention, and a further 20 have finalized, are in the middle of, or are about to finalize their internal process of ratification. This is encouraging as it is happening in the midst of a terrible pandemic, but ratification is not occurring fast enough. We know that ratification per se will not make the problem disappear, but reflects a commitment of states to act and engage with employers and workers and their representative organizations to deliver on the promises of the convention. 2 lessons are emerging from country experiences. There is a growing realization that violence and harassment is a matter of gender equality, as gender discrimination often fuels violence and harassment at work. But it is also an occupational safety and health issue, as violence and harassment is often an occupational risk factor and a source of major health problems. Preventive and corrective actions, therefore, need to operate along these 2 axes, and these 2 worlds need to come together. Data on violence and harassment are key to uncovering this scourge, set priorities for policy interventions, dispel wrong assumptions, and monitor their effectiveness. We have joined forces with Gallup and the Lloyd's Register Foundation to shed light on this phenomenon and get also a sense of who reports instances of violence and harassment and to whom, and the reasons for not reporting. This will be key to guide policy action. The challenges ahead are many, but it is undeniable that there will be no building forward better if violence and harassment, and gender-based violence and harassment in particular, continue to haunt us in the future.